Welcome back to For Me and My House, a podcast series based on discussions between four dudes living together, trying to figure out what it means to be God's people. We have the four housemates back in action. Kyle's come from the downstairs.
I'm back.
How are you?
I'm living and breathing, doing good.
You're living and breathing, doing good. TJ, you can't say the same, can you?
No, I'm not living or breathing.
You're feeling a bit sick?
Yeah, I'm not feeling 100%.
Me too. A couple of us are under the weather, but we're still excited to dig into some good stuff. How are you, Nat?
Great. Had a great sleep last night. I
How long did you sleep?
have no idea. Yeah.
Excellent. I got a question for Kyle. And I'm going to start with you, Kyle, mainly because you haven't kind of read this book, so maybe you won't have a biased view and you have a real honest answer. And the question is a simple one. As a world, are we progressing? Are we getting better? You know what I mean by that question?
That's a hard question. Wow. Simple but hard. Progressing in different ways. I don't know in the whole aspects of progressing. I'd just say that like in certain ways we are progressing, but in other ways we're kind of not.
Yeah. What would some of those ways we are progressing be? You could say like technology.
Technology is a big one, yeah. Just equality across all the boards is probably a big one that's really pushing lately. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure some people would argue equality is not progressing, but
Yeah, I guess,
it
yeah.
has to be if there's
The
no
gap, yeah.
if there's no like slavery and there's no rules kind of
Yeah.
anymore. You could say medicine's progressing a bit, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'll open it up to you guys. Now you've Nat and TJ, we've read a book by N.T. Wright, who has a certain view, and he does a good job explaining his view. But what would you guys say? Are we progressing as a world? TJ?
Yeah, like Kyle said, in a way we are, in a way we're not. I think we have this idea that we are progressing, but I think we're missing one big point in that it's like, so we progress so much in, like you said, like technology and medicine, and maybe like being like getting better with equality and understanding different ethnicities and stuff like that. That's progressing and that's good and that needs to happen. But I think we're also missing the point that we need to really start to focus on like our neighbors and like our family and the people we love and love us, because I think we sometimes maybe neglect that kind of stuff. And if we're going to progress as a human society, like we're not truly going to be like happy or in a sort of utopia state if we don't like actually the people beside us or around us. I think that if we tried to really like help out our communities, help out our neighbors, really put our efforts like there as well, I think that we could like really get like closer to a utopia if that's what we're reaching. I don't know.
I think personally the idea of what progression should mean, I think sometimes gets skewed, where they will hold this, maybe for as an example, scientific progression. They might say, I'm going to fund, put billions and billions of dollars into this, equipment or understanding or people so that we can discover, I don't know, as an example, if an atom has another piece to it, right? And this person might get so enveloped in that, like you were saying, they could neglect their family. And there could be this progress, but this progress is held sometimes above maybe what we could say really matters. Like we could say that this, maybe finding this other piece of an atom is really relevant and really, could make a big difference, but pretty much to most people's lives, I would think, it wouldn't matter too much. It'd be pretty irrelevant in my life, right?
Yeah, mine too.
And that person, so there's this I guess hierarchy that maybe that's what I would challenge, is what we should hold at the top of the list. Is it loving our neighbors? Is it being with our friends and family and contributing and putting positive energy out there? Or is it this scientific or medical or and I know that there's mission behind certain things where they might say, medical advancement, we could, cure cancer, something like that could save lives, or science can also do the same. But yeah, so that's the only thing I'd really want to discuss about, challenge.
Yeah, so that just opens up the question like, if we are progressing, what are we progressing to, right? Like, I guess that's what that would open up to. So as I gathered, maybe we can progress in technology, but TJ, it sounds like you don't think we progress that much in like our relationship with our neighbors. So you could just say how we treat one another almost.
Well, I'm
Is that
sure
kinda
we
what
progress
you're
in that too, but there's always room. There's always room to progress.
So you think we have progressed in how we treat one another?
Yeah, but if we're thinking about the book, there, like the myth of progression, it's sort of the idea that.
No, I don't want you. I want you. I want TJ.
Yeah. No. Okay. Well, then, yeah, I think that we're progressing in that. We're getting better at it. But like I said, again, there's always more. There's always room for that. And I think what is our idea of a neighbor? Is our neighbor like literally the next door neighbor? Could it be other countries? Could it be other cities? Could it be just people in Canada? I'm not sure, but I guess if we're gonna like if we want to reach like this utopia on Earth before heaven, if that's even a thing, then I think we should just really focus on, like I said already, helping those that need it like the most, and also not even just helping those who need it, just like helping people that you love and I don't know. I feel like I'm just going on a rant.
No. What I think is kind of interesting, just to say, is that when you ask that question, are we progressing? Right. I can only really speak for the people that I maybe have encountered, or maybe I might say Canada is even too big of a thing for me to take on if I'm saying, are we progressing? Because I think in different parts of the world, there's such a different culture. There's such a different things are going on. Like maybe I've heard that in more of a third world country, family is, there's definitely bigger families, and that is maybe what they value more because they don't have, things,
Yeah.
And here it's like we are being, almost taught to value things or material objects more than people, just so that we, so I feel like I would say for my culture, I think that maybe we're getting less good at valuing each other and more good at valuing, material things or things like that. I've heard a little bit about that, where there was a study that said that we've stopped having as many kids and our floor space has increased so much. This idea that we're just more distant from each other, but we like stuff and we're not valuing maybe family the way we used to. So that's what I would say for just really where I'm from or where I'm coming from, but I can't speak for the planet.
Oh no, of course it's a hard question. I'm thinking worldwide though, or the question is,
Yeah, I
like,
can't.
are we as a human society progressing or not?
There's so many different societies going on. I have no idea. I know nothing about the whole planet.
Yeah, well, no, I know. You were just trying to guess here. Here's another question. It's slightly different. Do we act as though we are progressing? As humans, do we act as though we're moving towards something better? Because that's what progression is. Politicians tend to say, if you vote for me, this will happen, which will make it better, right? So I think politicians act as though we're progressing. If not, why would there be politicians, I guess?
People are, in my experience, pretty polarized usually. Either they say, we're so much better than where we used to be. They'll say, oh, thank God we're not back then. Think of those people. Or you'll have people that are rebelling against this, progress and saying, I wish we got to get back to our roots kind of thing. So there's this, I think, a polarization of people. I think generally people would say one or the other, but if you ask someone on the street, I would say they would say we are progressing. Yeah, there's this general idea that we're getting better.
Yeah, the question is, do we act as though we're progressing, not do people think?
Oh.
Are we progressing, right? Like, do we function, what do you think, Kyle? Do we function like stuff is getting better?
I personally, I think yes. I think like our media likes to push a lot that we are progressing, or they try to change it up in a different way, kind of like paint it a different way to make us think that we're progressing, that maybe we aren't. But as a whole, I think we are progressing in the fact that we're acting out in that there are more organizations out there to help people more than ever. There are better ways to connect to people and really reach out to people. You hear stories of these people. I heard this one today actually about this man who he was dancing in a club and somebody took a picture of him or something and were laughing at him, and so he kind of just got discouraged and stopped laughing. that got put on social media, and then all these famous people and people around picked it up, and they had this big party for him. So it's like to think that like we are progressing as a society is like kind of like a crazy thing, because when you hear things like that, that would never happen in anyone's lifetime back like a couple hundred years ago, right? So in that aspect, in acting, like you said, in acting, I think we are progressing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I think we should be acting as though we're progressing.
Because we are, yeah.
Yeah, and I think we should be trying to get better, whether we're not. Like, it's funny, like, if I were to answer the first question, are we progressing, I would say no. But then I would say yes to, we act as though we are. But I think that's kind of the way it should be, I guess.
Really? Because
Yeah.
sometimes if you think you're progressing, you kind of get a little bit more lazy.
What's
Get a
that?
little bit more relaxed. Like if nothing's happening per se, or maybe we're not progressing, and then we act as though we are, that might take away some of the, initiative to continue progressing or to really figure out. You know what I mean? Like it.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm coming from this as a Christian who would have a different,
Agenda.
different agenda. Yeah. If I was a secular person, and I was like really honest and very intelligent, I would probably say we're not progressing, and what's the point?
Mm.
Like, but, yeah.
Well, I guess I'm thinking of progression as also from like a Christian. Like I'm thinking of progression as like a, less industrial or maybe less material. What's the word I'm looking for here? Not as like a popular culture, but more as like a Christian belief, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
TJ, do you think we act as though we are progressing?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I can just, I guess as a reference, if we're thinking, I'm thinking about like the environment. I can remember like having, in schools, like a lot of people come in with presentations on like, protecting the planet and keeping the planet safe and recycling and stuff like that. And then we'd go out the next day because we'd be all motivated and we would, try our best to recycle or keep the earth clean. This is just an example, I guess, or whatever. And then so in that sense, we're acting like we're progressing, but then in like a week later, we'll forget about doing that. So I think that has like real implications on like society, such as people will act like they've really made a change or something like that, and then a week later they'll just move on with their lives. I mean, there's so many examples like with all these shootings going on, we can act like, okay, we're gonna make a change, we're gonna stop all these things, and then like, especially in the States, and then they don't get rid of whatever the gun laws are down there, and then they happen again. It's like when we act like we're progressing, though, we're acting like, okay, we're gonna make a change this time. This time someone's been hurt, we're gonna change it, and then a year later it happens again. I think we act like we're progressing, and yeah, that's I guess what I have to say about it.
Yeah, cool, very cool. If we are not progressing, what is the point? And what are we doing then? Like, so I've kind of gathered from you that kind of, TJ, you would agree with me, like that we're not really progressing, but we kind of act like it. So what are we doing then if we're not progressing?
Procrastinating.
Procrastinating is a good one, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily like a downward spiral either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like a limbo state.
Yeah.
Like I used to think of things as though we would have. So just as an analogy, I would think of things as if we had multiple lives, and pretty much whenever you got on the bandwagon of learning how to become a good person, or etc., become enlightened or something, then you would be out of this cycle of lives, and you would reach enlightenment and be with heaven or something. And I used to always think of it that the reason it took so many lives is because people just procrastinated so much. People would just get caught up in something else. They would get caught up in all of the different things that this world could do. You might get so enveloped in just discovering, like I was saying earlier, whether or not there's another piece to this atom, right? Like that you could procrastinate your whole life and not really learn about God's word or what you should be doing as a real follower of Christ or a child of God. So I think that there's just this procrastination that goes on all over the world with it draws us away from maybe what we should really be learning or what we
Yeah.
should personally be progressing in, you know.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Kyle, yeah. What are we doing? What's the point of it all if we're not progressing?
It's hard to say, like, in this moment, I guess, because it'd be easier to say something like that in hindsight, right? We always look back, and a lot of people believe that, like, we weren't progressing back then, but we always kind of are. We just don't know it. But what are we doing if we're not advancing? I don't know. It kind of seems like maybe we're just running the motions of
Yeah.
life. We're just kind of we're like at the TV series. We're just kind of going through the motions, and then that's it. Like once it's over, it's over, which is a really depressing thought. But I think humans are better than that, so I don't think that's really honestly what we're doing. Because why would we still be here? Because like it would make no sense that humans are still here if that's all it was, just running the motions, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be something behind it. So.
Yeah, well, you could, like, just asking the question, like, are we progressing or should we be progressing? Like, without God, it doesn't really matter, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what, like, 'cause the question would be, what are we progressing to? And then you've thrown around this word utopia, but what does that even look like?
Yeah.
Like, to some people, that might be kind of closer to what Matt was thinking of, with less industrial stuff around them, less stuff. For other people, like, that might just look like a lot of technology, a lot of stuff, like everything's industrialized and everything's just super easy, right? Like, what are we actually progressing to? And I think without God, there's not really much to say besides individual feelings and stuff like that.
But I would also say, though, that I think when God comes into the mix, that it gives a purpose. That when he comes, for example, you could have built up a tremendous work ethic by, working all your life as, like some scientist or something like that, that might not work towards his goal. And then once you have God in your life, then you could use that work ethic to, do so much good, right? You might be better equipped. So I don't know that there's really any... There's definitely some irrelevance to certain things or procrastination, but I think it definitely does, you're still learning. You're still growing.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, but why would that matter without God? Like, you're coming from this with God, so of course it matters.
Yeah, I just think it would matter because then I think I'm kind of a universalist. I think eventually everyone will be with God, or that eventually God will come into everyone's lives. Or I think that it kind of equips you that pretty much, it's a time bomb. Once you do get to be with God, or once God does come, maybe that's just my personal belief that you might be better equipped, or
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Able to do
But
more.
if God never comes, then it wouldn't matter.
of course, yeah.
Yeah. Cool, very cool. I like that. Okay, so we talk about progression, but that's not really like a biblical word, and it's not really like a Christian word, and I think the word that we would say instead of progression would be redemption. Not progression, but redemption, right? We don't say, oh, Jesus came and we're going to progress a lot now, right? Or Jesus came to progress things on, right? We say Jesus came to redeem things. And we are a people who live a redemption story, not necessarily a progression story. What are the differences? What's the difference between redemption and progression? Is one just a church word of the other, or is there a real fundamental difference between the two?
What? Sorry. I think progression can be more of a selfish thing. Progression could be like an individual, object, I guess. I can't remember the word I'm thinking of. But
Person?
what?
Do you mean an individual person?
No, like an individual, like. Anyway.
Just keep going.
Yeah, as you as you keep progressing, it's like an individual thing. You want to be good at it, or you want to get to a certain standard that's like good for you. Like you're talking about, is like a personal thing. But I think redemption it's like sort of this idea of like saving yourself, or maybe not even yourself, but also having the chance to save others. And you're really you're redeeming maybe anything in your life that wasn't good. to God and you're giving it all to God. And I think in progression, like you can progress and you might make a mistake, but then you kind of let it go on its own. You don't like give it away or you don't confess it. You just learn from it. But I think the difference there is in redemption is that you're giving it to God and you're confessing your sins and you're saving yourself, but also others. And yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
So these would just be my initial thoughts on it, but I would say that redemption would just be maybe the proper kind of progression where it would be this understanding that maybe you should turn away from certain things that you, maybe they're not what you should have been doing or maybe not God's path for you. And then this redemption is this this real, through the love of Christ, starting to maybe start that journey, climbing back up the ladder to becoming more kind and more, I hate saying climbing up the ladder, and it also gives this sense that it's maybe not of you, that you're being forgiven, that you are, being redeemed as a person instead of just your own progression, like you were saying, TJ.
Yeah, I think where you hit the big difference for me between the two. Like progression is something that we would do. So as a world, we would progress towards something. Redemption is something that happens to the world. Like God redeems the world. So like, for instance, if Kyle wanted to become a better basketball player, he could progress himself towards becoming a better basketball player, but that would be on him to do that, right? I can't come along and make you a better basketball
I
player.
got the word repent and, I got that mixed up there.
What's that?
I was thinking of the word repent when I talked about turning away and starting a different path.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool.
sorry.
You're still kind of on the right
Yeah.
track, I think. But yeah, so I think that's kind of the big difference. Like redemption is something that happens to us. Progression is something that we would do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is cool. And the Christian hope is that in Jesus, like that's happened, right? That we've been redeemed. It's really kind of cool. Kyle, what's last question for you here? What's the difference between redemption and progression?
You guys pretty much, well, only things that come to my head are pretty much what you guys kind of already brushed on. I just think, redemption seems selfless and progression seems kind of selfish. So that's kind of like the difference that I've noticed, just the difference between those two words.
Very cool. Yeah. That's true, because in redemption it's almost like, well, it's not about me.
It's not about you at all. It's about the
God.
greater picture, the bigger picture.
But progressing, that's kind of like, well, I'm in it.
Everyone's there at their gym, on their own treadmill, trying to get their own
Very
workout
cool.
in.
And like I said about the real progression in a sense, it's really in your self-interest if you're trying to be with God, maybe it is this, if you're thinking of it that way, it could be the selfish thing to do in a sense, to become selfless, to become, more, I guess, saintly or with God or, to be redeemed is maybe, it's a gift obviously, from God, but that might be something that you need to think of. Just a thought.
Very cool. All right, well, let's pray us out. Heavenly Father, thank you so much that whether we're going somewhere or we're not going anywhere as a world, that we belong to you. And you ultimately have a plan, and that plan is named Jesus. We pray this in his name. Amen.